Hello and welcome to BTVI. The battle for 2019 is on and the countdown to the big day has begun. War of words, rhetoric and data debates are the order of the day. For the Modi camp or for the BJP camp, there is a ready reckoner. Sanju Verma has written a book on what is called Modinomics. The book's name is not Modinomics, but it's a handbook for those who want to counter criticism from opposition. But before I welcome, I should make a disclosure. I have written a testimonial, and this review is not because I have written a testimonial, but this is because, as I mentioned earlier, this is a book which tells Modinomics in numbers. So Sanju, congratulations. Welcome to the show. Let me put it this way, your book is full of data firepower. If anybody wants to counter any criticism, there is plenty of ammunition. So, which is the most important ammunition?
Thank you, Murli.
So, you go ahead. Which is your most important ammunition that you would give to people who face this constant criticism that Modi government has not delivered on this, on that, so many issues there?
Murli, I would like to highlight one thing, that it's very easy to make subjective statements. Let me start with the most important chapter in the history of post-independent India. It's a very important phase in the slew of path-breaking reforms that the Modi government has undertaken in the last 5 years. And I think there are no prizes for guessing I'm talking of demonetization, which has been demonized by the opposition, saying people died, black money was not unearthed, this was a jumla, so on and so forth. My logic is simple. The notes in circulation as a percentage of GDP was 11.55% in November 2016. 8th November 2016 was when demonetization was announced, and I am talking of then. Within 2 years, notes in circulation or currency in circulation as a percentage of GDP fell to 10.48. And while in percentile terms this might look very minuscule, in absolute number terms it's a huge fall. And the notes in circulation as a percentage of GDP having fallen is one of the best reasons why you need to say that demonetization has been unequivocally a resounding success, because on the one hand notes in circulation have fallen, on the other hand there has been a slew of activity on the digital platforms. For instance, via the Unified Payment Interface, or UPI as we call it, 100 billion transactions is what we hit in December 2018.
Right.
Every month we are doing transactions via the UPI alone to the tune of anywhere between 35 to 55,000 crores or more. So for someone to say that demonetization has failed, I think that is so much of hogwash, because don't forget, as you and me speak, anywhere between 3.8 to 5.4 lakh crore, which are mentioned in the book, is still under the scanner by the Enforcement Directorate and tax agencies, which means anywhere between 2 to 3% of GDP is still under the scanners. This may have come back into banks, but this was not accounted for. For somebody to say, oh, 99.3% of the currency that was demonetized came back into banks, so it was a failure, is a very simplistic logic by ignorance, because the fact is not all that came into banks was accounted for. Now it will be accounted for. People who have not paid tax and were putting money under the pillowcases, they will have to pay for it. And I think the biggest positive of demonetization is that it has brought in an attitudinal shift. People realize now, under the Modi government, you cannot cock a snook at the regulators and get away with it.
Absolutely.
Na khaunga, na khane dunga is not a jumla. The Modi government has walked the talk on this.
Right. Demonetization, GST, Aadhaar, there are series of measures, that's as I had written in the testimonial also. We are looking at there is a change in every way we look at it, change in the way we do business, even for the smallest of these small businesses. But my next question is, demonetization 2016, 17, 18, that phase is over, but monetization of the common folks, the temptation to fall under this pressure of populism, that is something very important. I guess you also have a chapter on the 6,000 rupee scheme that the Modi government started. How did you capture that, and what is the next step there?
Murli, I know we should not bring in offline discussions, but I think with you and with many people who are very aware, who understand economics, everybody agrees that it's very easy to say, we are living in a capitalist society. We will not indulge in welfare economics. We will not go back to the Nehruvian socialism era. Of course, Nehruvian socialism is long dead, and I've given many umpteen examples in my book. But my point is simple. In the case of Modinomics, it's not just about good governance. It's not just about bringing development to the doorstep of the last man standing, which is what integral humanism of Deen Dayal Upadhyay was all about. Integral humanism and Modinomics basically revolves around the principle of lifting a large mass of people out of poverty. And I think if you have to do that, there have to be specifically targeted measures, which is what the Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana, which will help people in the unorganized sector who are barely earning 15,000 rupees a month to have a retirement kitty once they retire. So for instance, if you're 18 years of age and you're in the unorganized sector, you have to just pay 55 rupees a month. If you're 29 years of age, you have to pay 100 rupees a month. If you're 35 years of age, you have to pay just 150 rupees a month. If you're 40 years of age, you have to pay 200 rupees a month. And once you hit 60, which is what senior citizens in India are defined as, though I don't agree with that, but that's a different topic altogether.
Right. Yeah.
The fact is, you will be given 3,000 rupees a month as pension, which I think is great. I think we are trying to bring not just 12 crore people inside the ambit of Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Man Dhan Yojana, but more than 40 crore people who are today working in jobs which are either recognized or not recognized as part of the unorganized and semi-formal sectors. So imagine, this is bigger than Obamacare, this is bigger than any financial inclusion scheme in the world, this is bigger than the social security schemes prevalent in the United States and even many European countries. So I think this is a giant step forward. And I would like to make a point, Murli, that this has to be seen in the context of not populism, but what this government has done even with, say, national pension system. Earlier, the government's contribution to the NPS was 10%. A couple of months back, in 2018, the later part of 2018, November or December 2018 to be precise, the government said the government's contribution in NPS will go up from 10% to 14%.
14%, right.
Even in the case of Pradhan Mantri Rozgar Protsahan Yojana, the government said our contribution will be far more than 10%. And if you are an employee in the textile sector, it will be even more. So the fact is that this government has always ensured that it's not just a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach which ensures that development is inclusive. So be it Jan Dhan, be it Pradhan Mantri Rozgar Protsahan Yojana, be it the fact that you have many small traders who actually today benefit from GST, or for that matter, even Ayushmanbharat. Tell me honestly, in which country on this planet, in one go, 50 crore, 500 million people get the benefit of free health care? So many years of Nehruvian socialism, Indira Gandhi saying Garibi Hatao, Rajiv Gandhi saying I brought in computers.
No, I thought I
so on and so forth. But the fact is that today it is the Modi government which has ensured that via Ayushman Bharat you have a socially inclusive healthcare scheme which is bigger than Obamacare and the biggest healthcare scheme globally anywhere in the world.
But Mr. Rahul Gandhi has promised 6,000 a month. You promised only 6,000 per annum. I mean, we are getting into competitive populism, something that's not matched in the past. We have seen farm loan waivers that have happened, but then this time around we are not creating jobs. We are telling that you be jobless, we'll give you money. And I have to bring this up because you wrote this chapter before this scheme came in. Do you think BJP has to answer to this, or say, okay, this is not possible, let's leave it at that?
I think, Murli, I'm glad you raised this question about Rahul Gandhi promising, 6,000 rupees a month. I will leave that aside, but I cannot withstand the temptation. I have to make this statement. I hope Rahul Gandhi knows there are how many zeros in 72,000 rupees and 72,000 crores. Be that as it may, I am not even talking about the fact that, what Rahul Gandhi has promised will only add about 3.6 lakh crore in terms of deficit. which is not a big deal. So the fiscal deficit goes up from something like 3.4 to 5.31% as a percentage of GDP. So there are many people who say that even 5.31% fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP is not bad for a developing country like India. So what's the problem if Rahul Gandhi has announced an additional dole out of 3.6 lakh crore? My simple point is that via Aadhaar DBT, let your audience know that the Modi government has already given out to the poor, the downtrodden, the marginalized, the people working in the unorganized sector, in the informal sectors, more than 5.35 lakh crore in the last 4.5 years. By the time financial year 2018-19, would have ended and the entire data would have come out by say May of 2019, more than 6 to 6.5 lakh crore, I'm sure is the number that you will hear, would have been disbursed by way of Aadhaar DBT. So Rahul Gandhi promising the moon and not being able to deliver is not a story that voters will buy. Voters will look at the fact that 9.5 crore toilets were constructed by the Modi government, more than 40,000 kilometers of highways were constructed, more than 1.97 kilometers of rural roads were built, 13 crore gas connections were given in 5 years vis-a-vis 12 crore gas connections given in 55 years, largely by Congress-led establishments. So where is the comparison? There is one person who's promising the moon, but his predecessors, his party, his dynasty has not even delivered this much. There's one man who's not delivered the moon, but he's beaten every possible benchmark and yardstick which defines what good governance, development and progress in a country of 130 crore or 1.3 billion people stands for. Tell me, Murli, I ask you today, people who say there are no jobs that are being created, how can an economy which is of the size of $2.6 trillion growing at an average of anywhere between 7 to 7.5% not have jobs?
No,
the auto sector alone has produced more than 11 crore vehicles in the last 4.5 years. We are today the 4th largest automaker, the 2nd largest smartphone destination, the 3rd largest startup destination, the 2nd largest steel producer in the world overtaking Japan. We are the 3rd largest electricity manufacturer, and you're telling me we don't have jobs? The MSME sector alone has been producing between 1.4 to 1.5 crore jobs as per data put out by the Confederation of Indian Industry, and I think their sample size is far more respectable, with no offense to NSSO, because NSSO only looks at the consumption part and households.
No, see,
CII looks at a whole host of data.
Exactly. No, see, Sanju, the problem here in India is, assessing jobs, the data on jobs is just not reliable. I'm not saying because it's BJP or Congress. We have seen this in the past, such a large unorganized sector. So whatever one says on jobs, it's anecdotal now. Let us be very, very clear about that, because these numbers, anybody can do any kind of sample size, it will not be very clear. My best indication is that, on inflation, on GDP, and on jobs, on these three if I combine, inflation was under control. Today there is no inflation in the country, which is not good. GDP went to a maximum of 8.5, now it's sluggish, we are seeing a stress. The best indication is that consumption growth is saturating. So that is an indication that jobs may not be going up, that there is a stress in terms of pricing. Now these are things, I don't know, your book has tried to make an attempt, you have mentioned all these three things, but we have reached a stage where inflation, low inflation is working against the economy, GDP is sluggish, and there are not enough jobs in the unorganized sector. I am not talking about the organized sector, that's a. Now these are the three key challenges for any government that's going to come. How do you think they have to be addressed? I am going forward and beyond the book. Okay,
now I will answer your three concerns. GDP. Let me first make it very clear, I have numbers on my fingertips, Murli, and you are aware of that. In 2014-15 GDP, I'm talking of revised latest numbers, 7.4%. Then 2015-16, 8%. 2016-17, the year demonetization was announced. For that fiscal year, GDP was highest at 8.2%. 2017-18, 7.2%. And 2018-19, we are working with advanced estimates of either 7 or 7.2%, which means that the average GDP growth, assuming it's 7.2% in financial year 2018-19, Modi government would have done an average GDP growth of 7.6% in its 5-year term. If 2018-19 GDP comes in at 7%, Modi government would have done an average GDP growth of 7.4%, which is far higher than the Congress's 6.7% under UPA 1 and 2. Point number 2, inflation. Food inflation has been on the lower side, which helps the Aam Aadmi. But if you're saying that there is deflation, I disagree, because you have to look at 2-3 things. WPI has been in the region of 3 to 4%. Consumer inflation or retail inflation has been in the region of 2 to 3%, but core inflation has been in the region of 5 to 5.4 or 5.6%. So my point is that inflation has been reined in. We are not in a deflationary scenario, because you cannot have deflation and an economy growing at 7.6%. You cannot have deflation and the economy producing 11 crore vehicles in a matter of just 4 to 5 years of the Modi government. You cannot have deflation and more than 140 million people taking to the skies. You had 140 million people taking to the skies and flying in financial year 2017-18. Air traffic growth on an average has been 23 to 24%. So let's face it, we are an economy with strong GDP growth, inflation reined in, fiscal deficit at well below 4%, current account deficit average of last 4 to 4.5 years is well below 3%. Our forex reserves have crossed $400 billion. And the most important thing is that we have attained respect in the international community. And I think that is what matters. Today when you go out and you are an Indian passport holder, it speaks volumes about your credibility as an Indian citizen, because every Indian is an ambassador of what Modinomics is all about. And I think that is best captured by the fact that after 14 years, Moody's upgraded India in 2017 from BA3 to BAA2. The outlook was revised from positive to stable. It never happened in so many years.
Absolutely.
Don't forget,
Absolutely.
under Chidambaram, Standard & Poor's had downgraded India to just a notch above junk status. So the legacy we inherited was poor, was decrepit, was redundant, but nobody was willing to admit. It's just like everybody knows the emperor is naked, but nobody is willing to say that the emperor is without clothes. That is what happened. All the chamchas of the Congress were never willing to say that the UPA was a disaster, it was a lost decade. Modi came and changed the narrative in terms of the socio-economic paradigm, and I think that is going to get reflected once we get a second term.
Right.
So I think
I'm coming to
the
that
quality
second
of
term.
growth is more important, and we've delivered both the quantum of growth as well as the quality of growth in terms of fiscal deficit, balance of payments, the rupee-dollar exchange rate, current account deficit, reining in inflation, coming out with socially viable schemes without letting the deficit go haywire. And I think that is what we stand for.
We should also thank Mr. Trump, because he keeps talking down the oil prices. That's helped us a lot. My other point is, see, the world and the markets are recognizing the fact that there is a strong growth story, which is why we see FIs coming in and pouring in more than $6 to $7 billion in the last 1 month, because they don't want to miss the bus. So you're talking about second term. So what's the groundwork in terms of numbers you have done?
Murli, I think you understand the nuances
300,
of politics.
320, 340, what's the numbers? What's a base number?
If I tell you we are going to come back with more than 300 or more than 350, I run the risk of being called, Sanju's Modi cheerleader. But I'm not apologetic about being one. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the bravado, just 3 months back, everybody was saying, oh, Congress is back in the game. They've got into the skin of the game. Which alliance have they stitched? And the BJP was supposedly trying to play Big Brother, and the alliance game was falling apart. But look at the genius of Amit Shah. And I've spoken about the meteoric rise of BJP and the meteoric rise of the indefatigable Amit Shah in the second part of my book, because I think he's one of the most influential leaders of our times, and we need to know more about him, write more about him. The fact is that Gathbandhan today is a notional concept. Where is the Mahagathbandhan? Where is the Gathbandhan? It exists only in thin air. The fact is the Samajwadi Party and the Bahujan Samajwadi Party dumped the Congress. The fact is that, you have Mamata Banerjee, who has prime ministerial ambitions. You have Sharad Pawar, who has prime ministerial ambitions. You have Deve Gowda, who has prime ministerial ambitions. Deve Gowda supports Sonia Gandhi. You have H.D. Kumaraswamy, who thinks Rahul Gandhi is going to be the next prime minister. The father and son are at loggerheads. You know, you have the a party led by Asaduddin Owaisi. You know, he announced with great bravado that, you know, the Congress and the IMIM will sweep elections in Telangana. What happened? IMIM was reduced to 7 seats and now they are not coming together. So the fact is that this Gathbandhan, as Arun Jaitley very rightly pointed